All right, rational. Oops, where did we go? Rational exponents, Unit 3, Day 5. Rational exponents. Definitely another Algebra 2 review thing. A to the m over n. You've done this. One of these numbers is the power, and one of them is the root. Do you remember which is which? The top number is the power, and the bottom number is the root. I don't think any of y'all have had Mr. Rainey, or maybe you've seen this anyway. The flower power grows on top, and the root grows underneath, just like a plant. It's really silly. Just because it rhymes. The root is underneath. The flower power, there's my lovely the power's on top. The root grows underneath. The power grows on top. So the root is the bottom number. The power is the top number. Like that. Now, there's actually another way to write that. We could do the root first and then do the power. And it's usually easier to root first, then power.
What if it was like when m was 2, like you just square it and then square root?
Well, it wouldn't be square and square root because we would have. M and m are going to be different numbers, like 2 and 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do some examples. So 25 to the 1/2. Start off easy here. So what's the root? 2. And what's the power? So there's a little bit overkill on this one to write it like that. But that's what it means. Take the square root of 25 and raise it to the first power. And what do you get? 5. I don't suspect anyone will ever show that step.
The bottom one is the one that goes in the number.
All right, how about 25 to the 3/2?
Oh, you kind of do that.
So what's the root?
You put a 3 on the very outside, and you put a 2 on the square root of it.
Yep, and you know that if it's a 2 on the square root thing, I don't need to put a 2 there. It's sort of the understood 2. So the square root of 25 cubed. And again, I could do the power first, but I really don't want to do 25 cubed. I don't know what that is. I'd rather do the root first because I know the square root of 25. And 5 cubed is a little bit of work. 5 times 5 is 25. And then 5 of those is 125. Let's try to go tricky here. 49/16 to the 1/2.
You really had to. It's one of those moments that
Well, so it's I can split up the 49 and the 16 and make it the square root of 49 over the square root of 16, and the problem just got a whole lot easier. I hope so.
Yeah, 4 and 7.
Yes.
7 and 4.
Yeah.
81 to the 3/4.
9.
No.
Hold on, let's write it out first. We're going to fourth root and then cube that. So the fourth root of 81. Well, if we're asking you to do these without a calculator, it's going to be an integer. It's not going to be a weird number.
So basically you're able to square 81 twice.
So 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. Whoops, not 8, 81. So that means the fourth root of 81 is 3. And then 3 cubed is 27. Root first, then power. But you got to be familiar with powers and roots and numbers, so that when we ask you to do 32 to the 2/5, 32 to the 2/5. So which root? What's the root? Are we doing the square root or the fifth root? Fifth root. Root goes on the bottom.
Wait, if it's not, doesn't that mean it's... Hold on. You gotta make it a...
So what times itself 5 times gets me to 32?
Probably 2.
I mean, probably 2, because it's not 3. So let's try 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. Times 2 is 32.
Yep.
And then 2 squared is 4. Oh, let's introduce another wrinkle in here. What's the wrinkle? Negative. What does the negative exponent do?
It moves it to the bottom.
Moves it to the bottom. Whatever has a negative exponent goes to the bottom. So we could rewrite this as 1 over 81 to the 1/2. So that would be 1 over, I'm really going to show my work here, the square root of 81, which is 1 over 9. And yes, after you've done a bunch of these, some of you are going to look at 81 to the negative 1/2, and you're going to say, okay, flip it over, take the square root of 81, 1/9, and jump straight to the answer. And that's okay. Be careful, the more complicated they get, the less likely you are to do that successfully. I'll look at it in a minute. 8/27 to the negative 2/3. 8/27 to the negative 2/3. So let's flip it over. Let's use the negative to flip it over.
You absolutely asshole. I didn't think you could square root 8.
I thought it was the other one. 27 squared is also 7.
So 27 to the 2/3.
They work out the way.
Or 8 to the 2/3. Again, here's one where some of you could perhaps get the right answer without showing any work. Most of you need to show some steps on this. Otherwise, there's just too much going on. Let's see. So cube root of 27 squared. So what's the cube root of 27?
It's not. It's 3.
3, and then 3 squared is 9. Again, I don't expect you to show 5 or 6 steps like I'm doing, but on this one, you probably have to show a couple steps. Cube root of 8 squared. Okay, let's skip a step on this one, even though we have a spot for it. The cube root of 8 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So if you're comfortable, skipping every other step, that's fine. But please don't try to go from 8/27 to the negative 2/3 all the way to 9/4. You're going to forget something along the way. There's just too many mental steps in there. None of them are hard. You're capable of doing any of them in your head. But if you try to do all of them in your head, something's going to go haywire. Let's do an equation. Solve 1 plus 2x plus 100 to the 2/3 equals 26. Another example of None of the steps are that hard, but there's like 5 steps, so don't try to do it all at once. Don't try to do it in your head. What would you do first? Well, hold on. I'm trying to get x by itself. So this isn't really order of operations, it's solving an equation. So let's subtract off the 1. I want to like peel off the pieces to get down to the x. So if I subtract the 1, I get 2x plus 100 to the 2/3 equals 25. Again, I'm trying to peel off the layers to get to x. I can't divide by 2 because it's that 2/3. So what exponent would sort of counter 3/2? Good. So my exponent needs to be 3/2. Because power to a power, what's the exponent rule there? What do you do when there's a power raised to a power? Why do they cancel though?
Because it's the opposite.
Okay, and so what when you say opposite? If I subtract those, they won't go away, so it's not subtracting. Power to a power, we multiply. So if we multiply them, they will cancel. Power to a power, we multiply. 2/3 times 3/2 is 1. And then on the other side, again, how much work do you need to show? Well, square root of 25 is 5. 5 cubed is 125. So maybe you could get by without showing that step. Now we're down to Algebra 1 level stuff here.
Do we do decimals or we leave it in?
We want to leave it as a fraction. Definitely leave it as a fraction.
Do we have to do plus or minus at all?
The plus or minus comes in when you square root both sides. We didn't square root both sides, so
Gotcha.
leaving it alone. But that's a good question.
So does it change? I think there was something with it. I don't remember what it was, but if it's like an even or an odd.
That's if negatives are involved. We need to be careful.
Negatives on the inside or the outside?
Inside. 11 plus x to the 2/5 over 2 equals 10. There's my x. I need to peel off the pieces. So what should I do first to start to get x by itself?
Multiply by 2.
Multiply by 2. So on the left, the 2's cancel. All right, don't distribute the 2 in there. The whole point of multiplying by 2 was to cancel the denominator 2.
Minus 11.
And minus 11. And then how do I do a 2/5 power?
Wait, you gotta put it over to.
What power would
You just multiply by the
counteract 2/5? Because they multiply 5/2 is what we want.
3 times.
Because what's 2/5 times 5/2?
Doing it.
1.
Oh.
And then 9 to the 5/2. So that would be
3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81.
that's exactly right. So
3 is
you kind of keep up with
3
it.
to the 5th is 243. 243.
243.
So yeah, sometimes you get stuck. You're like 3 to the 5th. I don't have that one memorized. Well,
Calculate it.
81 times 3, I can do that, is 243. So I think most of this worksheet's going to go pretty quick. The only problem is some of you it's going to go too quick and you're going to make a silly mistake. Hope not, but it might happen.
I know that you thought 81 can't be square rooted.
All right, so some of you are already working on the worksheet. It can go pretty quick. You could finish before we leave and then not have any homework over a weekend. That would be pretty fantastic.
Here.